the practices that I've been facilitating for some time now is just the general practice of sound healing, which is essentially just using sound and different instruments and using our own voice through singing and chanting to facilitate deep states of consciousness and to facilitate healing and to facilitate spiritual communion, which, I think, most or everyone in this circle does that in one form or another. That's been a practice that's been around as long as humans have been around in many, many different traditions, using sound as some form of spiritual communion and healing. And that's because sound naturally alters our state of mind and our state of consciousness. And so I'll screen share now. And so I think I'm glad I get to share now, because this is obviously an important topic at any time, but it's a very important topic now where we have so much intensity going on between people, so much polarization and hatefulness and just that kind of a negative intensity. So this is a way for us to tune in to a greater wisdom through the practices that we cultivate during this time, and the words that we share and the sounds that we share and the sound that we expose ourselves to, and how that affects our body, mind, and spirit. So sound healing, and I'm titling this Sound Healing, the Power of Sound and Intention. And it'll clarify more why I titled it The Power of Sound and Intention as we go into it. So this next slide, so can everyone see this? There's this video up. So I want to start the presentation with a video. And this video is based on the experiments of Dr. Masaru Ito from Japan. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you may have not. He's a doctor that actually studied the effects of sound and intention on water. And so it's really cool experiments that he did over a long period of time. He wrote multiple books just talking about how our sound and intention can affect our reality and can affect how he affected water molecules. And so we'll just share, it's about a 6-minute video. And this, so just enjoy this video, kind of take in the info, and then we'll continue with the presentation after this video. So we can see Masaru Ito's research demonstrates that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, and ideas in music affect the molecular structure of water, the very same water that comprises over 80% of a mature human body and covers the same amount of our planet.
It's looking. This next series of photographs are the work of Japanese researcher Mr. Masaru Ito from his book, The Message from Water. Mr. Ito's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water.
Can everyone hear that okay? Can you hear it okay, John?
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet. Water is the very source of all life. This photo shows the beautifully formed geometric design of the Yushi Spring water. This next photo is from the Shimanto River, the last clean spring in Japan. Notice the extraordinary geometric forms. The fact that the molecular structure of water can be affected by our consciousness, our intent, and our sounds is extremely important. This photo is from the Mount Cook Glacier in New Zealand. Mr. Emoto has been visually documenting these molecular changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then examines them under a dark field microscope that has photographic capabilities. His work clearly demonstrates the diversity of the molecular structure of water and the effects of the environment upon the structure of the water. This photo is from the fountain in Lourdes, France. This photo is from contaminated water from the Yodo River in Japan. In this photo, we can compare the contaminated water with clean stream water. Look at the difference. Mr. Emoto decided to see what effects music would have upon the structure of water. He placed distilled water between two speakers for several hours while playing different music and then photographing the crystals that formed after the water was frozen. This photo is of water being exposed to Beethoven's Pastorale. This photo is the effect of Bach's Air for the G-string on the water. This photo is water exposed to Chopin's Farewell Song. This next photo is water being exposed and affected to music that was designed for healing. This photo is of water being exposed to the Kawachi folk dance. This photo shows the effect of heavy metal music upon the water. Here now we can compare the effects of healing versus heavy metal music and what happens to the water molecules. Mr. Emoto decided to see how thoughts and words affected the formation of untreated distilled water crystals by typing words onto paper and then taping this paper onto glass bottles overnight. This photo shows the effects of the words, "Thank you." This next photo shows the effects of the words love and appreciation. This photo shows the effects of the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you." And here we can compare the effects of thank you with the "you make me sick, I will kill you." Very, very different geometric forms being occurred through the intention. Now this photo is of a very polluted and toxic water from the Fujiwara Dam. Here now is the same water from the Fujiwara Dam after a Buddhist monk had offered a prayer over it. Prayer, that sound coupled with intention, seems to have an extraordinary ability of restoring water to its natural, harmonious, geometric symmetry. And in this photo we can compare the toxic water and then the effects of praying over the water. It's really quite impressive. These photographs that we have just seen show proof that not only does sound have the ability of affecting and changing physical structure, but that with regard to the molecular structure of water, that our intent with our sound is extremely important. This may have great implications for the future of both personal and planetary harmony and healing.
Let's see, and the next slide here. So I've watched this video several times, and the quote that stands out to me the most is when he speaks on the prayer that is coupled with sound and intention. And he speaks about how the Buddhist monk prayed over the water, the very same polluted water that right after the prayer was one of the most beautiful geometric patterns that they showed in the video, or probably the most beautiful. And that is so profound to me, to really see that that was an experiment that took place and validated. And then, like you said, it validates what's been known for thousands of years and helps us, gives us a reminder, and deepens our own faith when we have these reminders and validations of when we're praying over our food and our drink, the energy that we're putting into that food that is then infusing into the energies of our bodies, our mind, and our spirit, and the thought and intention that we're giving to others in front of us, and what we're sharing with them. And of course we receive what we give, and so then we're creating that cyclical relationship and experience when we put out very intentional and conscious sound and intention to one another. And essentially sound and intention is what prayer is. Even if you're just using words and you're speaking a positive prayer, you're speaking those words out into the space, out into the universe with your clear intention, which changes the reality around you and within you, and puts you in that place of communion. So or if we're doing a ceremony and we're using certain instruments for deep prayer and connection and healing, there's many ways we can look at this, but that's essentially what prayer is that sound and clear intention, focused in a certain direction for certain things in our lives. So that's very powerful to just remember the kind of sound and intention we're embodying on a daily basis. And then it's also when I'm facilitating a specific sound healing practice, whether it's for a group or an individual, or any type of healing practice. If you do any type of healing practice for groups or individuals, you can really tune into yourself initially, tune into your clear intention of what it is for the group or for that individual or for the practice. And then you make that clear intention, and then you play your instruments, or you do your singing or your chanting with your voice, and that intention is naturally going to infuse the space and infuse the people around you. So as we know, as here we all know, sound healing has been practiced in one form or another for thousands of years in many different traditions for the purpose of spiritual connection and healing. The instruments used for sound healing and spiritual practice can bring you into a state of deep relaxation, energetic activation, awakening, and communion. In this state, you can experience peace, bliss, emotional release, oneness, and a deeper sense of self-awareness. So ultimately, that sort of speaks to the purpose of doing any sound healing, meditation, or ceremonial practice. And as I was just kind of sharing, the process and the benefits of sound healing, just bringing it back into a more specific context, like when I facilitate any type of sound healing, which is, I think, a large part of the reason Hector asked me to contribute to this class today, is because when I was traveling through Southern California and doing some practices, he came to a group sound healing that I did, and said, "Hey, this is something I'd love for you to speak about. This is something very beneficial," and he enjoyed it. And so what I do at the beginning of a practice like that, one of the instruments that I utilize is the crystal bowls. And they're really amazing instruments that create these deep sound, these overtones, this continuous sound that's very beautiful, and also helps quiet the mind more easily, so that sometimes it's difficult when you have your mind all over the place thinking lots of things. It's hard to quiet the mind, to come into that space of relaxation or communion. And so any type of sound healing or spiritual instrument, one of the main purposes is that it's a tool to help quiet the mind, so that you can harmonize and align your body, mind, and spirit for spiritual connection. And so we can use crystal bowls. Obviously, drums are used, and flute and rattles, and the didgeridoo is one that's been used for thousands of years. and even a more like a classical instrument like the cello. All of these different instruments support us in quieting the mind and coming into a more positive state of being, or a healing state of being. So what I do at the beginning is I tune into my own intention for the practice, but then I also check in with other people. What is your intention for this practice, so that I can help, not only guide my intention, but also stoke and facilitate the intention of the participants, because ultimately it's about creating the best possible experience for them, for their
Andrew,
own spiritual development, or for their own personal healing, or centering back into their own heart and soul in the moment. So yeah, just kind of going through the process of whenever I facilitate a healing session or a meditation session with anyone. And maybe some of this is something some of you already do, or maybe this will provide some beneficial insights of how you can facilitate practices for yourselves or someone else in a helpful way. So always asking people, what is your intention for this practice, so that I can support them in achieving that intention. And then I remind people that meditation is the process of coming back. Often in any kind of mindfulness practice or meditative practice, even with these tools that help us quiet the mind has a tendency to wander to things outside of the moment, wander to the to-do list, wander to things that happened yesterday, wander to non-essential, non-important things that are needed to focus on in the moment. So instead of making it a big deal, I tell people lower importance on it and just notice if your mind wanders and gently bring it back. And it may happen a bunch of times. You just notice it and bring it back. So one thing that a woman, a friend of mine who's been a Buddhist meditation teacher for a long time, she said something that really stood out to me. And she said, meditation is the process of coming back. So our mind wanders, we practice coming back to the original intention of that practice, of that ceremony, of that moment. And just as I said, simply notice it, bring your awareness back to the present moment, focusing on your breath and the sound and your original intention. And I think that also, that's sort of on a more specific level, meditation is the process of coming back, but also on a bigger level, meditation is the process of coming back to who we are in truth, at the soul level, at the spiritual level, our spiritual connection. So the regular practice of meditation is the intention for us to come back to who we are in truth spiritually. So sound healing and meditation practices can help us turn off the mind and quiet the mind. It can help us with stress, anxiety, and pain relief. There's actually studies that show that doing certain sound healing practices can help relax the body and relieve chronic physical pain. And studies have shown that it's helped large percentages of people reduce their pain medication when they did these kinds of regular practices. So clearing physical tension can even just, if you're stressed and you're working really hard and you just need to relax, it can help with deep relaxation. And within that deep relaxation, you can naturally experience energetic healing, clearing, and activation. You can experience more self-awareness in body, mind, and spirit. And you can tap into effortless states of creativity, flow, and inner wisdom. So of course, that's another intention of any type of meditative practice, is to help when we tune into the truth of who we are, that puts us into that state of natural creativity, flow, and tuning into the inner wisdom that is innate and natural as a part of our being. So another thing you'll hear people commonly speak about these days is a sound bath, just kind of another way of saying sound healing. But really the intention is, like, I'll facilitate things that I'll call it a sound bath because I use the crystal bowls and I really create this consistent droning of the beautiful sound so it fills the room. And it's just this constant sound, and you can really feel the visceral vibrations in your body. So that if I do this for 30 minutes straight and you're just in this field of sound that totally relaxes you, body, mind, and spirit, you start to feel that the sound is actually penetrating in a good way. And it it feels as though the vibration of the sound are massaging and relaxing your body. And what this can facilitate as well is a cathartic release. People could have kind of an emotional release if they tap into some pain that they've had emotionally or in their heart. A sadness and anger can release, and I encourage people to let that release, to let those tears flow, to let those yells come out, to let the crying come out if that's the case. Or sometimes a cathartic release can come in the form of laughter. Sometimes people will have a big like energetic shift, and they just start laughing, and that's also a release of emotion as well. So this can facilitate that. It's kind of like the vibration goes in there and shakes things up until it gets loose. I also see that the sound vibrations actually do something really similar to acupuncture, where the purpose of acupuncture is to put the needles into energetic meridians of the body to free up any stagnated or blocked energy, so that your energy, the chi, your life force, is naturally flowing freely through all the meridians of your body. And the vibrations of sound can do that as well, as long as it's a beneficial type of sound, can free up those energetic blockages so that energy is flowing freely throughout your whole system, which can then induce the experience of, you could even have spiritual visions, you could go on an inner journey, you can experience a natural state of spiritual bliss and ecstasy, which, and you can see on the bottom here, I put healing from substance use. This was something that was really powerful for me when I was younger, because when I was 13 years old, I started drinking a lot. I started smoking, drinking, kind of getting into a lot of different things that way. And it was the only time I had experienced a really great high. Like, my whole teenage years, getting drunk was my favorite thing to do, because of the emotional turmoil in my life. It was the high that made me feel the best. Well, by the time I was around 20, I was pretty tired of myself, and I knew I was very unhealthy, and I didn't want to be that way. So I started seeking out these types of practices. And I was so amazed that just through sound and meditation, I could be in these states where it felt like I was high, but it was a natural high. It was the energy flowing through my body in a healthy way that made me feel alive, that made me feel grateful, that made me feel present in the moment. And it was a very pivotal thing for me to realize that I did not need alcohol. I didn't need any kind of substance or drug to bring me to an experience of feeling happy and whole and healthy, and even experience that natural spiritual bliss. So if you know anyone that really is working hard to overcome their substance use issues, then exposing them to these type of practices can be very beneficial, because it's a total shift in the mind. Because people think they need alcohol or they need the drug in order to feel good. That's not necessarily the case. It takes time to make that shift, but you can find practices that bring you to that high that you're seeking. And it's a spiritual high, it's a healing high. So these are the different brainwave states. If we want to go kind of back onto the scientific side, that is helpful and validating to our spiritual practices. These are 5 different brainwave states and their associated benefits. So usually, like right now, most of us, we're in a beta brainwave state. It's like the focused attention, external stimuli. We're all looking at a presentation. I'm speaking outwardly to all of you. It's high level cognition, analytical thinking, problem solving, stimulates energy and action. So when we're in action in the world, we're more in a beta state of mind. Then sort of the next step up from that, that the state of mind that's really helpful to our creativity and our sense of peace and happiness within ourselves is the alpha brainwave state, which is what most meditation practices are taking us into the alpha brainwave state, which is relaxed focus, stress reduction, positive thinking, accelerated learning, flow state, which means that we're effortlessly engaged in activity and environment, and we're just feeling good. We're more in tune with ourselves. Our mind is a little less active because we're in the flow. We don't need to think too much. And then the even deeper state, going beyond the alpha brainwave state into a really deep meditation, is the theta brainwave state. So most of the time when we're in a meditation, we usually dip into the alpha state. But then as we get into a really deep meditation or spiritual state, we get into the theta brainwave state, which is also the same state when we're in REM sleep, deep relaxation, inner peace, meditation, creativity, hypnopompic and hypnagogic states. That's the first time I've ever read those words. So I'm not sure what they mean. And then even beyond the theta state is the gamma state. So that's high level information processing, cognitive enhancement, memory recall, peak awareness, and transcendental state, means spiritual states transcending beyond the physical plane, transcending beyond the five senses. And then the delta state is deep sleep, pain relief, anti-aging, increased healing, access to the more unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. So when we engage, the sound healing practices help our mind go into these deeper states. And when we're regularly tapping into these deeper states of mind and consciousness, it allows us to have a healthier beta state of mind when we're in relationship, we're interacting in the world, and we're doing the actions that we need to be doing in the world. We can facilitate these states of consciousness through spiritual instruments and the power of our own voice. So again, I just want to come back to and reiterate that knowing the power of our own voice is really important. And something that I've done, you may have songs that are part of your own tradition that help you come back into a state of centeredness or peace or connectedness. Something that I've done for a lot of years is just really simple chanting. There's lots of different types of chanting in yogic and Buddhist systems that that are very simple and can just bring you in a state of relaxation and quiet your mind. And so that's something. And there's obviously many songs from many traditions that we can utilize for this purpose. So that's something I really encourage for people. And then these are some of the different just examples of sound healing or spiritual instruments. So we have the Himalayan bowls, which are more like metal bowls that have been used for thousands of years. They're made out of various different metals. And then the crystal bowls are a more modern invention that are similar to the Himalayan bowls. Rattles, drums, flutes, didgeridoos, gongs, chimes, cello. Obviously, there's more other spiritual and healing instruments, but these are just some examples of some of the main ones that people utilize in many different traditions. So, and then I just wanted to put on the end here some practical takeaways of what you can you just practically take away for your own life and utilize, is just being conscious of how you speak to others and also how you allow others to speak to you. Because obviously we want to be conscious of how we're interacting with others, the sounds and the words we're sharing with others, but we also want to protect ourselves and not just allow other people to speak to us in a negative or hurtful way. So really being conscious of how you're creating those boundaries and allowing others to speak to you. And then also being conscious of the type of music and sounds that we're exposing ourselves to. So putting ourselves in environments where we're hearing positive music and sounds, um, and being conscious of the type of music that we're exposing to ourselves and the people around us, because music has a huge influence on our state of mind on a daily basis. And incorporating regular singing, chanting, and playing instruments, meditation, and prayer into our daily lives. Another practical thing is you can go online and you can go on YouTube or other specific sites that you know of, where you can download music and just listen to sound healing or guided meditations online. That's a very simple way if you need just support in getting into that state of mind. And then, of course, engaging in community spiritual practices and ceremonies. It's a little challenging right now with COVID going on, but we can still do the best we can. We can do things like this on Zoom. And then as things open up more and more, it's so important for us to come together as community to engage in these types of practices. Remember the power of thought and intention. You can write on your water bottles, putting words and intention on the water that you drink or the food that you eat, really putting that prayer. Prayer, when we pray over our meal, yes, it's to give thanks to the Great Spirit, thanks to all the elements, the land, the animals, the plants that provide us the nourishment. It's to give that gratitude, but it's also to infuse the water and the food that we're eating with a particular energy, so that we're taking in that energy and infusing it within ourselves. And then also, even beyond the sound, as we've been talking about intention, really noticing the thoughts that you have and think towards yourself. So really paying attention to your own inner dialogue about yourself. How do you feel about yourself? How do you speak to yourself? And really making an effort to think loving and uplifting thoughts towards yourself about yourself. Even if you make mistakes, how can you constructively learn from those mistakes and continue to believe in yourself and think really positive things about yourself? So through meditation and sound healing, we can relax, experience healing, creativity, rejuvenation, balance, peace, and